Good morning. My name is Vlad Krastev, and I'm a worship associate today. My pronouns are he, him. Our chalice lighting is by Lisa Garcia Sampson. In these wild, historic, and uncertain times, we gather to remember who we are, who we belong to, and what we are called to do. As we light this chalice, we kindle the spirit of the great turning, the movement for justice, alive in this nation today. May we feel it in our bones, and in the stillness of this hour, may we sense it calling our name. Our church shares a covenant that we make with one another, a promise that helps to remind us of why we gather and how we want to be with one another. Please rise in body or spirit and join me in saying our covenant together. We unite to strengthen the bonds of kinship among all persons, to promote human dignity, and to increase awareness for life's great power, sustaining and transforming power through worship, study, and service. Please remain standing for opening hymn for everyone born.
This first hymn, you'll recognize the words probably, but the tune is different, and it's out of the new hymnal, and so we're going to do our best to sing it, and it's 5 verses. I think by the second verse you'll get it all, and so bear with us, please. This is Sarah, by the way. I'm Jeff.
Free.
And now it is time for our message for all ages. If anyone young or young at heart would like to come up.
Hello again. I'm Sarah Tilford Rodriguez, pronouns she, her, and this is message for all ages. Last stop on Market Street. Words by Matt de la Peña, pictures by Christian Robinson. CJ pushed through the church doors, skipped down the steps. The outside air smelled like freedom, but it also smelled like rain, which freckled CJ's shirt and dripped down his nose. He ducked under his Nana's umbrella, saying, "How come we gotta wait for the bus in all this wet?" "Trees get thirsty too," his Nana told him. "Don't you see that big one drinking through a straw?" CJ looked for a long time, but never saw a straw. From the bus stop, he watched water pool on flower petals, watched rain patter against the windshield of a nearby car. His friend Colby climbed in, gave CJ a wave, and drove off with his dad. "Nana, how come we don't got a car?" "Boy, what do we need a car for? We got a bus that breathes fire and old Mr. Dennis who always has a trick for you." The bus creaked to a stop in front of them. It sighed and sagged and the doors swung open. "What's that I see?" Mr. Dennis asked. He pulled a coin from behind CJ's ear, placed it in his palm. Nana laughed her deep laugh and pushed CJ along. They sat right up front. The man across the way was tuning a guitar. An old woman with curlers had butterflies in a jar. Nana gave everyone a great big smile and a good afternoon. She made sure CJ did the same. The bus lurched forward and stopped, lurched forward and stopped. Nana hummed as she knit. "How come we always gotta go here after church?" CJ said. "Miguel and Colby never have to go nowhere." "I feel sorry for those boys," she told him. "They'll never get a chance to meet Bobo or the sunglass man. And I hear Trixie got herself a brand new hat." CJ stared out the window, feeling sorry for himself. He watched cars zip by on either side, watched a group of boys hop curbs on bikes. A man climbed aboard with a spotted dog. CJ gave up his seat. "How come that man can't see?" "Boy, what do you know about seeing?" Nana told him. "Some people watch the world with their ears." "That's a fact. Their noses, too," the man said, sniffing at the air. "That's a mighty fine perfume you're wearing today, ma'am." Nana squeezed the man's hand and laughed her deep laugh. Two older boys got on next. CJ watched as they moved on by and stood in back. "Sure wish I had one of those," he said. Nana set down her knitting. "What for? You got the real live thing sitting across from you. Why don't you ask the man if he'll play us a song?" CJ didn't have to. The guitar player was already plucking strings and beginning to sing. "To feel the magic of music," the blind man whispered, "I like to close my eyes." Nana closed hers too. So did CJ and the spotted dog. And in the darkness, the rhythm lifted CJ out of the bus and out of the busy city. He saw sunset colors swirling over crashing waves, saw a family of haws slicing through the sky, saw the old woman's butterflies dancing free in the light of the moon. CJ's chest grew full, and he was lost in the sound, and the sound gave him the feeling of magic. The song ended, and CJ opened his eyes. Everyone on the bus clapped, even the boys in the back. Nana glanced at the coin in CJ's palm. CJ dropped it in the man's hat. "Last stop on Market Street," Mr. Dennis called. CJ looked around as he stepped off the bus. Crumbling sidewalks and broken down doors, graffiti-tagged windows and boarded-up stores. He reached for his Nan's hand. "How come it's always so dirty over here?" She smiled and pointed to the sky. "Sometimes when you're surrounded by dirt, CJ, you're a better witness for what's beautiful." CJ saw the perfect rainbow arching over their soup kitchen. He wondered how his Nana always found beautiful where he never even thought to look. He looked all around them again, at the bus rounding the corner out of sight and the broken street lamps still lit up bright, and the stray cat shadows moving across the wall. When he spotted their familiar faces in the window, he said, "I'm glad we came." He thought his Nana might laugh her deep laugh, but she didn't. She patted him on the head and told him, "Me too, CJ. Now, come on."
We give to support our church and community. Giving is a way to participate in love and blessings. Generosity opens us up to more love. It is a way to sow, to commit ourselves to a beloved community where we can inspire, heal, and belong. Together, we will reap the blessings to come. The offering will now be gratefully received.
Let us join our hearts in prayer. God, who is love, help us to receive each and every person as part of the beautiful tapestry of your image. Each complicated, broken, vibrant, amazing, and wildly different person. Help us to show up with love in our hearts and a little bit of humor. Amen.
Hello, my name is Joyce Simon, she, her. I am a lay minister here at Countryside. Each Sunday, we share joys and concerns so we may show our support and strengthen the bonds of kinship among us. Let us know if you have something you wish to be included or could benefit from our support. There is a link on the church website and in the weekly e-news, or contact any of the lay ministers or, of course, the church office. Kim and Paul Ostrowski share a joy and a gratitude. Actually, they call it a colossal thank you to Margaret and Matt Myron for their auction donation of a stay at their beautiful lake home in Michigan City. 3 generations of the Ostrowski crew were able to enjoy a very special vacation there. Thank you, Myrons. For these and the unspoken joys and concerns that remain in your heart, please know that we honor them. And the best news of all is that Dr. Reverend Emma, is our minister as of August 1st, and we look forward to her. Please let us sing together, Spirit of Life.
My name is Linda Berry, and my pronouns are she, her. Dr. Martin Luther King invited us to imagine humanity as members of one household. He observed, "A widely separated family inherits a house in which they have to live together. This is the great new problem of mankind. We've inherited a large house, a great world house in which we have to live together." King's vision was not merely about tolerance, it was about responsibility. A family does not ignore a leaking roof over one bedroom because the rest of the house is dry. It does not allow one room to flourish while another one decays. The well-being of each member depends on the well-being of the whole. Today we remember that the lines once drawn on maps were more than ink. They shaped neighborhoods, schools, businesses, and lives. The Community Reinvestment Act represented one effort to repair a house that had been built with unequal foundations. As Unitarian Universalists, we affirm that every person possesses inherent worth and dignity. We are called not only to recognize the injustice, but to rebuild our common house so that every family has the opportunity to belong, to flourish, and to help strengthen the communities we all share.
Good morning. My name is Mike Berry, and my pronouns are he, him. Can everyone hear me okay? Great. I want to start today with a simple question that reaches deep into the moral life of a society. Who belongs? Who belongs? More descriptively, whose neighborhoods matter? Whose hopes and dreams deserve investment? Whose future is considered worth building? Those questions sit quietly underneath one of the most consequential pieces of economic justice legislation in American history, the Community Reinvestment Act of 1977, often called the CRA, and that's how I'll refer to it. At first glance, it might seem like an unlikely topic for a Sunday service. Banking law doesn't usually stir the soul. Yet beneath the technical language of lending and regulation lies a very spiritual matter. Whether we truly believe that every human being possesses inherent worth and dignity, or whether, consciously or not, We divide communities into those considered valued and those not. A little context about me and where I come from on this topic. I spent 6 years working for an affordable housing developer you've never heard of that was owned by several dozen banks, wanting to enable housing in low-income Chicago neighborhoods, basically. That was the basic mission of the firm. The firm was founded about 5 years prior to passage of CRA, so these were actually some pretty progressive people in banking. I then spent 27 years at the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago, which enforces and periodically revises the CRA, as well as a bunch of other regs. And the CRA was actually at the center of my work through virtually all of this time, over 30 years. So, what's going on here? Andrew Jackson, in addition to being our 7th president, was a slave owner, as were 5 of the 9 historic figures who appear on our common currency and coins. I think we can agree that what we recognize as discrimination has fairly deep roots in slavery. If you were ever curious what this encircled letter to the left of the portrait means, it's that this bill came into circulation in the 7th district, G being the 7th letter of the alphabet. A lot of 7s in this piece. The 7th district only partially follows state borders and is comprised of about 2/3 of Michigan, Indiana, Wisconsin, and Illinois, and the entire state of Iowa, including the rural parts. I mentioned this, that was actually a joke, but never mind. I mentioned this because the CRA, in addition to the Fed's oversight role, CRA was created in the 7th district, in Chicago, in fact, with some help from a Wisconsin senator, which I will explain in a little while. But the story of CRA begins with another painful truth about American history. For generations, banks and government agencies systematically denied loans and mortgages to Black and immigrant neighborhoods. The Federal Housing Act of 1934, which paved the way for a new housing finance system of government-insured long-term mortgages, codified this type of discrimination into law. Although these provisions were later changed, it took decades, and the practice of highly discriminatory lending went on long after they were changed. On maps created in the 1930s, entire communities were marked as risky, undesirable, or hazardous. When you get to the map, I'll show you how that's delineated. Some literally outlined in red. You'll see Chicago's map shortly. The FHA underwriting manual also explicitly barred banks from making mortgages to people of color within desirable neighborhoods. And just in case the family managed to save enough to buy a house in a place they wanted to live, the act also barred people of color from owning property or even living within designated neighborhoods, except, and I'm not making this up, as servants. So those red lines did more than shape financial decisions. They shaped schools, businesses, housing conditions, and family wealth. Real estate has been the main source of wealth and generational wealth transfer for about a century, and that is still true for the vast majority of American households. So today, we gather not just to discuss economics, but to reflect on what our faith asks of us when systems create exclusion or inequality. What does justice require of a community? What does covenant require? How do we help repair harm that's been woven into the structures of society itself? So this is Chicago's original map. HOLC stands for Homeowners Loan Corporation, which was a very potent, well-funded intervention, but a temporary one, with tons of money to buy delinquent mortgages from banks to prevent them from failing, which many did anyway. Recall we're in the middle of the Great Depression at this point. Creating the maps was also a huge and completely manual undertaking that required an army of workers. But when we hear the term redlining, it can sound abstract or distant, like a relic from another era. But for millions of Americans, it was and is deeply personal and real. I also have to say, these maps are free from the University of Richmond, but I forgot to cite it on the map itself, so I'm doing that verbally now for the record. A family might work hard, save responsibly, and still be denied a mortgage simply because of the neighborhood where they lived or, as I mentioned, the color of their skin. Business lending is a different topic, but banks naturally stay away from disinvested communities. As the tax base erodes, streets deteriorate, homes lose value, grocery stores close, schools get marginalized as budgets wither. Generational wealth that might have been built through homeownership does not materialize. And perhaps most painful of all, redlining quietly communicated a moral message. This community matters less. These families are less trustworthy. These lives are less worthy of investment. That message stands in direct opposition to the values we hold as UUs. One of our foundational principles affirms the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Not some people, not people who live in the right zip code, every person. Yet history reminds us that societies often betray their highest values through systems that quietly sort human beings into categories of deserving and undeserving. And once those systems are established, they begin to feel normal or even invisible. That may be one of the most important spiritual lessons of this history. Injustice often hides inside what people come to accept as routine. So this is a quick overview of the policies that led to CRA, but I'll walk you through this. By the 1970s, community activists, clergy members, civil rights leaders, and neighborhood organizations began demanding accountability from banks that accepted deposits from places while refusing to lend in many of the same neighborhoods. In response, Congress passed the Community Reinvestment Act in 1977. The CRA came about in large part due to the dedicated work of a community organizer named Gail Sincata, the daughter of immigrants who lived in the Austin neighborhood and did not complete high school, as well as her colleague Shel Trapp. They created the very effective but confusingly named National Training and Information Center, later renamed National People's Action Committee, which had a key role in crafting the CRA. I knew them both through my development job and later in my early Fed years, where I worked in a small department of economic research called Community Development and Policy Studies. We often convened bankers and nonprofits at Fed events to help them make connections, and Gail attended lots of those events. She died 25 years ago this month, and I actually attended her funeral. The law declared that banks have a continuing and affirmative obligation to help meet the credit needs of all communities in their markets, including low-income and under-resourced neighborhoods. The bill was sponsored by Senator William Proxmire of Wisconsin, who was head of the Senate Banking Committee, and was voted into law in 1977. And just to put a fine point on what a different era it was, only 7 senators voted against the law. So most Republicans voted for it. Importantly, the CRA did not require reckless lending, a refrain I heard often from bankers who, in short, mostly didn't care about justice or fairness. It did not demand charity. It simply held that communities should not be abandoned because of race, class, or geography. The name ProfitWise, the Fed publication of which I was managing editor for about 20 years, contained the word profit for this reason. There was and is potential to lend profitably and fairly in lower resource neighborhoods, and that is the only way that lending and investment can be sustained over time in any market when there is profit to be made. But at its core, the law recognized a moral truth. Banks don't exist apart from society. They are sustained by public trust, public infrastructure, and public participation, and intended to add rather than extract value. And so they carry public responsibility. That was the gist of Proxmire's pitch when he introduced the bill. That idea resonates deeply with UUs. Ours is a faith that values freedom, but not freedom disconnected from responsibility. We speak often of interdependence, the understanding that our lives are bound together in ways we sometimes cannot fully appreciate. The CRA reflected that same moral vision. It challenged the idea that prosperity belongs only to those already thriving. It insisted that healthy communities require broad participation and shared opportunity. In many ways, the law was an attempt to repair a broken covenant between banks and the communities they serve. Sometimes people speak about redlining as though it ended long ago and no longer shapes American life. It continues in many forms. Within algorithms used to measure creditworthiness that contain proxies for race, age, gender, and other protected factors. Within lending terms, such as floating rates combined with stiff penalties for refinancing that are offered to only some borrowers, and you can guess which. even if they qualify for better terms. And even where banks choose to locate branches has powerful effects. An AI query about current practices that affect minority and majority borrowers differently yielded a dozen categories of abuse. This is current. For people who don't have a banking relationship, pretty much unthinkable for anyone here, all sorts of sketchy actors move in to address that market with high-cost lending products. And these people aren't subject to the CRA as they aren't banks. So it's not a binary issue by any means. Neighborhoods that were denied investment decades ago often continue to struggle with concentrated poverty, underfunded schools, environmental hazards, reduced access to health care, lower rates of homeownership, and as I said, unfair and unnecessarily costly lending practices. If we look closely, many of the old red lines are still visible, not on maps, but in patterns of wealth and opportunity. Where a child grows up still strongly impacts life expectancy, educational opportunity, exposure to violence or pollution, access to transportation, and the likelihood of building wealth. This is why economic justice is not only about money. It is about dignity, stability, belonging, and hope. As people of faith, we're called to ask difficult questions. What does justice require beyond individual kindness? What responsibilities accompany privilege? How do we address harms accumulated over generations? Because inequality was built structurally, compassion alone cannot fully address it. Repair also requires structural change. That could feel overwhelming. Yet UU history reminds us that faith communities have long participated in movements for abolition, civil rights, fair housing, dignity in the workplace, and democratic reform. Our tradition calls us not merely to comfort those harmed by injustice, but to help transform the conditions that brought it about and perpetuate it. There is an important difference between charity and solidarity. Charity says, I will help you. Solidarity says, your well-being is bound up with mine. Charity can be beautiful and necessary, but solidarity asks deeper questions. Why are some communities repeatedly denied resources? Why do some neighborhoods flourish while others are neglected? And who benefits from the systems we inherit? And who bears the cost? The lesson of redlining is not simply that prejudice exists. The deeper lesson is that prejudice can become embedded inside institutions and policies in ways that persist long after overt discrimination becomes socially unacceptable. People can participate in harmful systems without ever speaking hateful words. That realization requires humility from all of us. It asks us to examine not only personal attitudes, but the structures around us. Where does investment flow? Who has access to opportunity? Whose voices shape public policy? And who is left unheard? Our UU faith calls us toward beloved community, not as a sentimental dream, but as an active practice of building systems rooted in fairness, inclusion, and human dignity. Beloved community is not merely feeling connected, but also ensuring that communities actually have what they need to thrive. So what does reinvestment look like now? It may involve supporting affordable housing initiatives. If you work in a Starbucks in Glencoe or Lake Forest, there's a very high probability you don't live in that community, and that's because affordable housing is mostly barred, and so people travel long distances for blue-collar jobs. It may mean advocating for fair lending practices or school funding reform. It may involve supporting community development organizations, policies that expand access to healthcare and transportation, and supporting local businesses in struggling communities. But reinvestment is not only financial. Reinvestment also means choosing relationship over isolation. It means listening to communities rather than assuming we already know what they need. It means understanding that justice is not about rescue, but about promoting and participating in mutual success. The opposite of redlining is not merely lending money. It's recognizing that no community is disposable. Every time we widen the circle of concern, every time we challenge systems that exclude, every time we insist that dignity belongs to everyone, everywhere, not only in thriving places, we participate in the sacred work of repair. The Community Reinvestment Act emerged from the recognition that markets alone do not guarantee justice. Without moral accountability, societies often drift toward exclusion. Wealth concentrates, opportunity narrows, entire communities become invisible to those with power. But faith traditions exist in part to resist that drift. They remind us that human beings are more than economic units, that being part of a community carries obligations, and that our lives are interdependent whether we acknowledge it or not. The old red lines on maps were ultimately expressions of fear. Fear of difference, fear of scarcity, fear of sharing opportunity. Our UU faith invites us towards another way, a way rooted in courage rather than fear, in covenant rather than separation, and in the belief that every community deserves dignity, investment, and hope. The work of justice is not finished, and maybe never is, but every act of reinvestment, economic, relational, spiritual, helps reweave the fabric of community. May we continue that work together. Amen. Blessed be. May it be so, and thank you for listening.
Please rise in body or spirit for our closing hymn. Draw the circle wide.
Yes, we promise that this one will be easier to sing and much more familiar.
Draw the circle, draw the circle wide. Draw the circle, draw the circle wide. No one stands alone, we'll stand side by side. Draw Draw the circle, draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide, draw it wider still. Let this be our song. No one stands alone, standing side by side. Draw the circle, draw the circle wide.
One more time.
The circle wide, draw it wider still. Let this be our song. No one stands alone, standing side by side. Draw the circle, draw the circle wide. Draw the circle, draw the circle wide.
Please join me in saying our closing words together. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of its truth, the warmth of this community, nor the fire of our commitment. These we carry in our hearts and share with all the world.